Of the complaints I've heard about James Gunn's upcoming Superman movie, and there are plenty, with a certain subsection of fans being extremely vocal about their problems despite already being creatively and morally disowned by their leader, there is still one complaint that rises above the others. And the reason for that is because as much as I want to be perpetually positive about every single facet of this movie, something that I will try to do when discussing just about any topic on this channel, but I can't deny that there might just be too many characters and plot lines in Superman. Welcome to Sandwich Reviews. I'm the Talking Sentient Sandwich, your naive but informed optimist, and for every argument that I'll make as to why this movie doesn't have a character problem, it goes without saying that at first glance, the story seems to be a little crowded. Just to list them off, there's the Superman himself, his dog, his parents, his cousin, Lois the leading lady, Jimmy Olsen and the rest of the Daily Planet crew, Maxwell Lord and his corporate superhero team, Flag Sr. and whatever government agents he's with, plus Lex and his bumbling team and his actual team, and any other mystery villain that I'm hoping to see but doesn't necessarily have to appear. Which all seems like it could be a little too much to juggle, but isn't actually that much when put beside other superhero movies, notably the ones that a lot of people like to define as an epic, which Superman won't be, but it still has a lot of introductions to get out of the way. But for starters, a major aspect of Superman's story that evidently won't be covered is Krypton. And this is a massive assumption I'm making based on Gunn not wanting to tell known origin stories, but I get the feeling that we're not going to see any of Krypton, just because no one has been cast as Jor-El or Lara, and for that reason, I don't even know if we'll see Ghost Dad in the Fortress of Solitude. But along those lines, I could see Krypto being the last remnant of Superman's long-gone home world, because Superman would deeply care for any animal in his charge, but if that animal, which also happens to be a cute dog, is also one of the rare things linking him to the dead alien planet he's heard so much about but never actually seen, obviously he'd want to befriend and protect that dog. But that aside, of course the main proponent of there being room to breathe in the narrative is the idea that the story will be focused entirely on the character of Superman, using him as a focal point to get a good picture of his surrounding world and characters. I mean, obviously Superman will be the focus, showing his perspective of this world. He's the title character after all, but I think it'll go even further than that, where every scene, even the rare ones without Clark or his alter ego, will still be about Superman, revolving around the character or idea of him, discussing him, the effect he has on the world, or what more he could possibly be doing to save people, with every plot point moving the story forward being about Superman. And all of those extra side characters, like the other superheroes, will be there to establish a realistic world. And I don't mean realistic in a true-to-life sense. This world Gunn has set up isn't meant to be similar to our own, but instead genuine when it comes to its own authentic DC world, as in it's living and breathing. I've seen so many movies, superhero movies especially, that feel just artificial, where the only events that happen in the whole universe are the ones that we are seeing, as if time stops in a background character's life or even a main character is put on halt when they aren't on screen. So when we get to things in Superman like the big kaiju-sized monster attacking Metropolis, I know this sequence and more is going to feel fleshed out, because in any other movie, that would be a one-and-done action scene put in to prevent the brain-dead side of the audience from losing interest. Yet I'm confident that monster will be a part of the conflict between the movie's in-universe public and their lack of faith in Superman. And I'm only guessing, but considering that kaiju has expressive human eyes, I'm willing to bet the lack of faith and general anger has to do with the fact that Superman refuses to kill it, causing more damage that could have been prevented. Though your guess is as good as mine when it comes to that particular story. I mean, for all we know, that kaiju could be Jimmy Olsen. But for another example, take the Daily Planet employees, Perry, Ron, Lombard, and Cat Grant. Whether or not they're the exaggerated cartoonish personalities that they could be or are more subdued, they'll still have actual lives that they're living. And depending on how good the writing is, those ancillary background details can uphold the themes and ideas at the foundation of the narrative, essentially rounding out the overall story and making it more of a complete introductory experience to this world. And this movie does have a particularly hard time because it is an introduction to a new universe that general audiences may be somewhat familiar with, yet the movie will still need to do the legwork of getting everyone up to speed about who all of these new people are. That being said, it's not like every character will have a 10-minute sequence devoted to them, with classic James Gunn fashion flashbacks to their tragic past. Maybe one person will, Metamorpho or Mr. Terrific, because they're less well known and Gunn has said that they'll be slightly more important than the rest, yet they'll still get a fraction of the screen time that'll be devoted to Superman. That, as well as Supergirl or any other league or candidate that I'm confident will show up, will be seen for no more than a second, if only to establish that they do exist in the world. And getting back to Metamorpho and Mr. Terrific, I'm pretty sure, just judging from this one shot in the trailer, that Metamorpho will be a new hero, with us witnessing his origin, which means maybe the greedy corporate villain of Simon Stagg will have to be crammed in as well. Honestly though, probably not. To simplify, his origins can just be referenced, or the corporation that does it to him can be consolidated to LexCorp, since they'll already presumably be the nefarious company pulling the strings. Regardless though, I could see Metamorpho being used more as a plot device, which sounds bad, but could work really well. After all, turning a person into the story's MacGuffin and making the stakes for acquiring that MacGuffin more personal isn't the worst thing in the world. It's one of the many reasons why Star Wars works. And I bring up Mr. Terrific because, as I said earlier, Gunn himself stated he'd be important, but taking that piece of information and running with it, as well as working off of what we've seen of him in the trailer, I'm guessing he'll be Superman's and the audience's eyes and ears into Maxwell Lord's Proto-Justice League. And I could imagine that corporate team, by the end of the movie, shedding their Lord Tech uniforms and taking a cue from the naivety of Superman, saving people and doing good out of pure goodness and not for monetary sponsorships or any other roundabout reason. Not officially creating the Justice League quite yet, but corralling the characters together that will eventually form it. I could also see Mr. Terrific not being a part of any of that, at least down the line, and instead establishing the Terrifics, a fairly recent team of genius heroes and Plastic Man, assembled to chart the unknown Dark Universe. But however it's implemented, I guarantee Terrific's character will be used as a lens to get a good look at all of the other heroes. And that's thanks to him being a great character to bounce others off of, but also because people just aren't familiar with him. Where general audiences have been inundated with the lore of Superman and his history, people don't know Mr. Terrific's backstory or what a T-sphere is. That is, unless you're one of the 5 people who kept on watching Arrow after season 3. And then, on top of that, there's the fact that this Mr. Terrific isn't even the first one, because he's one of the many legacy heroes that has had more than one person don the hero name, which could play into the aspect of almost every hero in this movie being a legacy character, as they attempt to faithfully complete or even improve on the job their predecessor did. And that's something that will for sure be incorporated into the story, but I can't picture every one of those predecessors making their way into the narrative. At most, they'll be referenced so that their presence can be felt. And all of those aspects can 100% come together in a satisfying way because none of the characters and story concepts listed are mutually exclusive, meaning there's nothing contradictory about what we've gotten confirmed in the story. In fact, depending on the quality of the writing, of course, it's possible for every piece of the pie that makes up this movie to form together and create an incredibly satisfying couple of hours. And the best comparison I can think of to relate how I think this movie will come off as is like a long-form episode of the animated series, which I've heard some people say sounds bad, but I can only see that being a good thing. That is to say, if the movie and third act especially are epic, which I'm confident they will be. But that also brings up another point, that the third act will focus up the story no matter how many moving pieces there are beforehand. Even in the rare chance of the first half being a hodgepodge mess of characters and ideas, Gunn has at least demonstrated that his third acts will always pay off on the setups in a cathartic way. Will that conflict come from a cosmic mystery villain that has yet to be revealed, or from Lex himself? I have no clue. I'm just confident that conflict will be there. And I've already made a whole video essay about how Lex and his team might just be the only villains in the story, so make sure to watch that to get my full reasoning why that could work. But the more time that passes, the more I consider how Lex is more than enough. With his bumbling team including Otis and Tessmacher, and his actual team consisting of the Engineer, Ultraman, and presumably many, many more that we just haven't seen yet. For me, that's plenty of villains, at least for this first Superman movie. And I guarantee you Argus won't be as villainous as Lex, but there's also Flag Sr., as well as any other government agents alongside him, which means probably not Waller, but at least her presence too, which all adds up to a very dense movie, but not crowded. Because everything and everyone, from the villains to the central characters to the multiple complementary, almost supplemental side characters, everything will revolve around the central point that is Superman. Do you agree, or do you think there might have been too many assumptions made in this video? drop a comment with your thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe for weekly video essays and reviews, and enjoy a delicious sandwich.